From Informa Tech Target, I'm Beth Pariseau, and this is IT Ops Query. This podcast distills the signal from the noise about enterprise software development and platform engineering. Each week, we'll talk to expert guests about the latest tech industry news and trends that engineering and IT leaders need to know. Don't forget to subscribe to IT Ops Query for more conversations on AI and the future of the enterprise digital workspace. You might recognize Rob Strechay from his appearances on TheCube live streaming videos during industry conferences, but he's worn many hats in the industry over the years. He's also founder and principal at Smudget Consulting and an advisor to tech startups. He previously worked as an analyst at Enterprise Strategy Group, as well as a product leader at NetApp, Zerto, AWS, and HPE. Earlier in his career, he worked in disaster recovery and storage management for financial services firms Manulife and John Hancock. Hi, Rob. Always good to talk to you. Thanks for
always great to be on, and you know, it's like back in the days when I actually did real work, right? That's what I laugh about when Manulife and Hancock get brought up. But yeah, it's I've worn a lot of hats over the years.
Absolutely. Which is why it's perfect to talk with you for your customary look back and look ahead with the new year upon us. So, in 2025, what was the biggest news story to you, other than obviously AI in general? Was there anything more specific within that really, you thought was most significant?
Yeah, I think open source coming to data and AI and really like things like Iceberg and Delta coming together with the acquisitions that Databricks has made and some of the stuff that Snowflake is pushing with the OSI, the Open Schema Interchange format. And, a bunch of different people coming together around this that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be working together, because they kind of look at that schema level and where all of this the battle was, a year ago, in 24 was all about catalogs and who was going to open source their catalog and who was going to own the catalog. And now we've moved past that, thankfully, because I think it was, a load of malarkey, to put it kindly. And the fact is that people just needed to be able to interchange this data. We'll see how that pays out in 26 if everybody does truly come together on this, because that kind of unlocks a lot of things that are going on. But you have a lot of industry heavyweights throwing their support behind this. And I think there'll be a lot more announced in 26 as well. But I think that was one of the hidden gems of this, but there's more as well.
Always. And I know that companies like Atlassian and ServiceNow have been adding data catalogs. What's important about the open source aspect of that?
I think that really, when you start to look at it, open source nature of it helps with the transparency and the securing of it. And I think this was probably one of the most, overlooked things this year, was the fact that, hey, security is really not there for a lot of this AI stuff. And, I think, we've been sweeping it under the carpet, and the wood too. Putting it right in the floor and burying it in the ground, because I think when you start to look at how people do this, people have been running really fast with agents and agentic AI. And to your point, how much of it is hype versus how much is real? I think there is a lot of real out there, but I also think that the security aspect and not having it built in, I think by open sourcing it, and people like the Linux Foundation and CNCF and Apache getting involved in many of these things like MCP servers and things, will help bring some rigor to that from a security perspective. And that's what I'm looking forward to with the open sourcing of a lot of this stuff.
Right. Yeah. Security became a hotter topic. You mentioned MCP. Some things got resolved with at least authentication and authorization upstream, but there's still obviously a lot more to do. And security is that perennial afterthought in the industry.
It is. And I think, again, usually it's, security and cost. Whenever we do research and we do, go and talk to organizations, it's like security and cost first, and then, functionality after that. But I think this one, I'm glad to see the light of day shined on a lot of this. Like you said, MCP finally has a home. So that's nice. I think, again, A to A also finding a home. And I think there's a lot of confusion around all of these different protocols and people think it's a thing versus a protocol. It's like, hey, it reminds me, and I was having a good conversation with one of the heads of one of the corps that's, in the middle of all of this. And we talked about MCP, and I'm like, it reminds me of when everybody had to be REST, and it was
Yes.
all API driven and then API gateways. I'm like, it's an MCP. Tell me MCP is not an API gateway for AI. And they're like, no, you're right. I'm like, well, sun shines on a dog every now and again.
You're right. Right. And so there have to have been other overlooked or underrated stories in 2025 as well. Any others come to mind?
Yeah, I think again that infrastructure is growing again, and I think you see it in the numbers from the organizations with where they're talking about budget, and I was talking to somebody this morning about buying 1024 GPUs for a super pod kind of thing for their AI. And our conversation was, but how much storage has to go along with that? And I think the other pieces like networking and all of kind of the networking for AI and AI for networking, and there was a whole lot underpinning what's going on in just the GPU wars that really, I think, got overlooked or overshadowed because so many people are spending $17 million on 1,024 GPUs. And then, oh, by the way, I need the data to feed that. And I may have multiple copies of that data. So I think one of the things that was really buried is cost optimization really was not addressed at all in any of this year. And I think that, again, is, people are ending up again with duplicate data all over the place and data silos. And that, again, I feel like we've seen this story before.
I mean, talk about Groundhog Day, right? I mean, 20 years ago, I started in storage talking about the same stuff. And same for you. So, and then that obviously has led to some, AI bubble talk. But, AI, especially agents, have yet to really make it into production for most enterprises, I think it's safe to say. And obviously, all of this has come on so fast. That's not necessarily surprising. But, how successful do you think this AI wave is going to be? Do you think there's a there, or do you think we're going to end up kind of walking back our expectations?
I think there's definitely a there. I think that agentic technology, and I kind of call it, instead of calling them agents, I call them buddies. As the AI buddies start to pop up and actually help people, I think that's going to be a big 2026 thing. People are going to start to understand the processes that they're actually modernizing. And I use that word in particular because I think agents used to modernize processes that have been done by humans versus just copying processes and saying, hey, go between these 11 different Excel spreadsheets and give me this output and tell me where I'm wrong. But going past that with new data feeds and modernizing, I think this actually could be how long have we been talking about, really business transformation and really modernization through this technology, and everybody, oh yeah, we're doing all of that. And there was no there for a lot of it because there was no impetus to do it. And I think AI buddies and agents and all of this stuff will force people to kind of relook at it because I think their boards are looking at them going, hey, I don't think you should spend as much on hiring this year. And so you're going to have to make do with who you have. But you've been making investments in AI. Let's see how that plays out. And I don't think it replaces people, but I think it slows down hiring even further in certain aspects of the industries.
Right. And it's going to change the way people work that are already in the workforce. And there is still fear about replacement. I mean, how real do you think that is long term?
I think it's really interesting. I mean, having a son who's at Arizona State, getting a comp sci degree, and going to get his master's now, and his one in after he graduates his bachelor's. I look at it and see what they're teaching him and how they're involving AI in the curriculum. And I think education's still definitely behind on this, and I think it's something that hopefully takes hold next year. Is that education kind of catches up a little bit to this, especially for developers. I think developers are going to become more, program managers and developers kind of meeting up and being able to do product management. And me with my product hat on a lot of times, I look at that and defining requirements that become prompts that then become software is going to be super important. In fact, I think understanding the businesses they work for and the use cases becomes much more important. And I think there's going to have to be reskilling of a lot of people who just love banging on a keyboard and, making pretty code, because they're going to fall more towards, hey, evaluating how good the code is, getting rid of extraneous stuff, really prompt engineering better software. And I think that will become, those skills will not go away banging on the keyboard, but I think they change, because if you don't understand the architecture, you can really make some really crappy code really fast.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I think there's a slowdown to figure out, and I don't think anybody has yet, to figure out, okay, what level of people do we need to bring in? I mean, you look at like the Amazon layoffs that they did of the 14,000 people, back in the fall here. And I look at that and go, okay, I saw the distribution of who they laid off for Seattle. And you started to look at it. It wasn't all junior developers. And I think some of the fear of replacement is that, hey, this is going to come after the junior people. There's not going to be a pathway. And I think right now there's a lot of fear, and I think for good reason with that. But I think into next year, I see people figuring out that this is an enabler, not a replacement today, and that they're going to need to understand how to bring it in. And the Amazon example, they had people of all different levels getting whacked, right? I mean, it's people who had been there for decades, and this is all on Reddit. So I'm not like, it wasn't any super secret NDA or anything like that. But I look at this and go, I think it'll help with people where you can't get people to work, like call centers, when you have third shift and you're trying to manage a lot of things, and people have been, doing chat for so long. Well, if I have a AI buddy who's handling the first level support in chat, and then it's, then bringing it up to my level, hey, you get to be able to, get a better view. And we even see this in things like finance, where it's helping people do more or increase their scope. They weren't getting, another accountant or another person helping out with supply chain. And this helps them manage more that they were going to have to do anyways, because, once you do a good job, you never get less. So,
So how do you see the cost optimization factor coming in?
I think that's the biggest thing for 26. I think cost optimization across the board has got to be one of the stories of 26, where people are going to be focused on, like, really focused on the ROI out of AI in 26. And I think that to that point, people who try to do the uber large AI project, I'm going to automate the entire supply chain pipelines, everything, and get it up and running in 4 weeks, and think that they're going to cover every use case that somebody does and replace them. I think those are the people who are going to really be that MIT stat and fail, and really not, it will never make it to production. And then you're also going to see that some people may have mishaps with that. And I think this is one of the things, that AI is not infallible, beyond things like hallucinations that we see with chatbots and things of that nature. I think that sometimes it doesn't have access to the data, and it has to punch out to somebody. Then they have to understand context. And that's one of the things AI right now doesn't do a good job of, is understanding context of what's happening. It can read data. It's great at that. And it knows next action and next best action. but, again, bringing together different AIs and analytics, you can get pretty good. But, hey, if you can help people 95% of the time, I think that's pretty high, but it's not 100% of the time.
Right. And then, to come back to the open source and data management equation, do you see that meaningfully maturing as things progress with AI, people getting better with the data hygiene and grounding AI in data?
Yeah, I think AI data quality and data governance and data security are going to be three major themes in 26 that have to get solved for. I think data interchange of metadata, which is that OSI open source project, is critical for people who are running data silos, and pretty much everybody is. Nobody's going to go and push this goes back to that cost optimization. Everybody, all of the major vendors would love you to push all your data, structured and unstructured, into them and, slap Iceberg or what have you on top of it and, be able to use it as the central repository. That's not going to happen. I don't see that happening in 26, 27, 28, 29, or forever. I mean, because people have too much. There's still, we did a recent survey for data platforms, and 50% of the organizations out of 436 are still running on-prem Microsoft SQL, and that's not going away. So I think, again, it becomes to your point on question on the whole optimization, how much duplication of data can you even have it? Because you think FDA, once you have FDA governed data in something, it needs to be FDA governed. And that means, you have to put strict regulations on it. And there's a lot in, FISERV and others. There's a whole number of organizations. And I think there's over 1,000 different AI regulations going around the world right now. Yeah. And, the governance and security and data quality is going to be all the rage in 26.
Yeah, and we're already hearing vendors talk about this idea of disaggregated infrastructure, kind of responding to the reality of data gravity. So, obviously this stuff moves really fast. You've already thrown some predictions out there, but are there any other trends you see unfolding maybe for the first half of 26?
Yeah. I mean, beyond the data governance, I think data governance will be a huge one for 26. And I think data management, you kind of hit on it. I think, like I said, data silos will persist, and people will be looking at how they can really focus across those data silos. So I think it's more than just different, open source things like Iceberg and OSI. I think there's going to have to be different new things that I don't even know about that is similar to A, but at the data layer. And I think, to me, that's a big thing, is that gets into kind of security and agent security and tokenization of identity and things of that nature that is so huge to me. I think that right there, the security aspect of it, is going to probably be the biggest thing. And I think part of it is driven by the data silos and agents going cross data silo to be able to use data.
Right. What do you hope will happen in enterprise tech in 2026? What's the best case scenario in another year?
Yeah, I think when you look at enterprise tech, I hope that more people are successful with building agentic buddies and really getting to a place where they can you see the benefit out of it, and there's ROI, because otherwise we've spent trillions of dollars for to no end, which I don't think is going to be the case. But I think you'll start to see many more agentic buddies coming up and helping organizations. And I hope as part of that, it shows a pathway for upskilling, and that really focuses on how we educate and continually educate people on this technology as it becomes into jobs that normally aren't tech jobs, like customer service. Healthcare, I think, is going to be massively impacted by this in a good way. I mean, my doctor already uses AI note takers to send me my stuff afterwards. which is actually completely scary as hell. But at the same time, they're using a secure one within their organization that they've rolled out. And I'm like, so, I asked the questions. He's like, you know a lot about this. I'm like, yeah, this is why I'm asking. But when I look at it, I think people will become less scared of it because I think a lot of the reality starts to hit, or at least that's what I hope happens, is that some of the fear of agentic buddies really comes out.
And so, training and upskilling skills, that's also a perennial topic in IT. Where do people get that training and education from? Where do you see companies doing that internally? Is that something that open source foundations can help with? How do you see that unfolding?
Yeah, it's going to have to be all of the above,
Okay.
right? I look at it and go, it's got to be an all of the above strategy and upskilling. And I think that organizations, are really set up for this kind of thing. I think there's communities around the different. I mean, you take Databricks, right? They're really built on top of open source, and that community is really large. And so when you look at Spark and Apache Spark and Apache in general, it's set up for people to contribute in. I think things like CNCF and Linux Foundation in particular are set up to do a lot more education because they're more not user driven or end user developer driven as much as they are corporate driven. And I think that, the corporations know that this is a huge thing and will funnel money into these efforts. And I think beyond their own efforts, because they have to get buy-in within the organizations to sell their stack to an organization for AI. So I think if I was a CIO and CTO and CEO of a company, I'd be actually pushing very hard on my vendors, on my hyperscalers about how they're going to educate the end users on this. And I would make it their problem. Just because I think that to me is where the money is. And, it's why people rob banks, right? There's the money. And,
right.
If you're going to cause a problem, you should be part of the solution. And I think they will. I mean, Amazon and Microsoft and Google and Oracle have all signaled properly that they want to be part of that solution of upskilling, especially people like Oracle. I got to say, I give them a lot of credit with the progress they've made, but they also they're building AI agents into their software, not as an afterthought, but something that comes with it, which helps them justify their pricing and other stuff, and the value gives more value. But they're also doing a lot of education with that as well. And I know Salesforce is pushing in the same way as well as they bring more agentic into their solution.
So you've already mentioned spending trillions to no end, but aside from that, what do you hope won't happen in enterprise tech in 2026?
Yeah, I hope we don't go through another year of fear. And fear mongering around, AI is going to end our lives, and really, that this is all. It's that AGI is going to come and get us, and my car is going to take me and run me into a wall or something like that, which that would suck. But that's the there is the cyber aspect that's real there.
Okay.
So, but I look at it and go, what I hope doesn't happen is that we move on from agents too fast without seeing the success. I feel like to your point, 6 months out, every 6 months, the rotation. I think if we say that the next whiz bang thing of AI is out now, then you start to look at it and go, okay, so do I stop doing that when we haven't solved all the problems yet?
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of problems to be solved, and I hope we don't ignore them. And things like governance, I think governance and data management and security have to get solved in 26. I look at it and go, I think good thing is sovereign AI and a lot of different countries that, frankly, are ahead of the U.S. from a regulation, maybe good or bad. You can argue either way. But at least it's being talked about and pushed on. And I think, again, even the latest stuff with the U.S. being done at the federal government layer versus leaving it up to every state, I think makes a lot of sense. And they haven't done that with a lot of other things. So maybe we get some regulation that helps, doesn't hurt out of it. We'll see.
It's possible.
Maybe.
We can hope.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anything else that, is on your mind as we head into a new year that I haven't thought to bring up?
I think one of the things that also gets a lot of attention beyond the security aspect is resilience of AI. As we do build it into our everyday, and as organizations, how organizations deal with resilience. I wouldn't be this if I didn't have my long-term business continuity and disaster recovery hat on. But it's a lot harder. You're not going to DR an entire super pod or something like that. But organizations, that I think that will be one of the big pieces that gets solved. And I think regulation will, like things like DORA over in Europe and what it pushed, and the Cyber Resiliency Act and things of that nature will push this, because those apps that are AI enabled will become critical to those things like banks. Yeah. And, if it's giving out false financial information, and people get sued, that will really, turn them on the data quality rotisserie. But also, if it's down for a couple days and people can't, because now there's no physical way to get it, that will change people's attitude as well. So I think the Cyber Resiliency Acts and DORA and others and Sovereign Cloud is going to be a good thing, a positive thing in 26.
Yeah, maybe DR and security could be moved beyond insurance. Right.
I think it has to. I think it has to. And I think, it can't be an afterthought.
Yeah.
I've been preaching that for a very long time, that, and even though an ounce of prevention is worth, a pound of recovery, to put it mildly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because we're talking about a new wave of technology, but in a way, we're also talking about things that are as old as I know my career. That
everything that's old is new again.
Absolutely.
It's every year, right?
Yep.
It's just slap a new acronym on it and we'll be good.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Alrighty. Well, I hope it's a good year for you, Rob. And thank you.
Same with you, Beth.
Thanks.
It's been great.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for tuning in to IT Ops Query. To learn more about enterprise software development and platform engineering, explore our content on Informa Tech Target sites. Find us on YouTube at our channel, Ion Tech. Subscribe to our podcast to receive the latest episodes as they drop. And if you liked what you heard today, give us a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Thank you for joining us.